Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's Ascender webinar, Employee Engagement One-on-One, How to Succeed Engaging a Remote Workforce. So we're going to get all our video cameras on right now because in today's age, it's all about the video and seeing each other's faces, and that's a big part of employee engagement. I just want to apologize if you hear my dog in the background. That's what you get from working from home. But again, thank you everyone for coming today on the line to join us for this webinar. Mel, I'm going to ask you to move to the next slide if you don't mind.
Sure thing.
So today's webinar, we're going to be talking about employee engagement and how to engage your employees remotely when you're working from home. And our webinar host today, we've got Melissa Cairns, who's from Ascender PeopleStream. So she's been at PeopleStream for more than 6-7 years now, and she's been helping businesses out with implementing HR systems and processes. And then we've also got a really special guest today, Vanessa Porter, and we've worked with Vanessa a lot when it comes to our workshops and running training sessions for our customers. And Vanessa, it's so great to have you on the line. I guess maybe you want to give the people a little bit about yourself and your company and what you do.
Thanks very much, Michelle. Yes, it's great to be here. Thanks everybody for joining us today. I guess the real focus for us right now has changed a little bit, and what we're doing is pivoting a little bit. So we're providing peer support networks for HR leaders and HR managers and HR practitioners with a business cadence really to help them to cope through these difficult times. And a lot of the materials that we've produced, we're also going live with those online. So whether that be resilience, focus, positive outlook, etc., and providing blended solutions to our clients.
Lovely. Great. All right. Well, enough from me. Again, if you guys have any questions, you can ask them in the question or chat box on your screen there. But we also have, a Q&A at the end as well. But please ask Vanessa or Melissa any questions, and I'll be sure to ask them. All right, take it away.
Thanks, Michelle. Okay, so today we're going to talk about engagement and how to engage your workforce during these tough times. So obviously we know that a lot of people are working from home. So we've got some really simple strategies and things you can put in place that we'll talk about today. But first we're going to start with context. So as you can see here, there's a Gartner survey that was done. There was 88% of organisations have encouraged or required employees to be working from home due to the COVID-19 or coronavirus. Today, we can see also that studies have shown working from home for extended periods can leave employees feeling socially and professionally isolated. Okay, so hence the reason engagement has been at the forefront of many people's minds, and especially ours here at Ascender. So what are the challenges of that? Mobilising the workforce from home. I see a lot of businesses aren't always set up to be able to do that. So this is a whole new landscape for people to navigate. Isolated employees, there's lack of communication, there's lack of connection, then increase in anxiety and stress as well, and lack of clarity and direction. So it's completely different than coming into the office, seeing your colleagues, having your regular meetings and understanding what's happening and where the business is turning. That's just from an internal environment perspective, but then you have all these external variables going on as well. So the impact, when we have a look at this, you can see here that there's a multiple knock-on effect here. So, if there is, an opportunity where businesses need to cut back, you've got leaner manpower. This can feed into higher attrition because people are stretched. Business can incur more cost from that, having to rehire and retrain, the attrition costs, profitability gets affected, employee layoffs as well, affects employer brand. There's a lack of talent available that feeds into profitability again. So you can see how everything spirals around and feeds into everything. And then there's HR sitting in the middle of all of this. So what can HR do to help mitigate some of this risk and these impacts here? So a downturn for a smart HR person is a golden opportunity to highlight business acumen. Now, I know Vanessa and myself are huge advocates for this. We believe that HR can be the people expert and drive some incredible business outcomes when they apply themselves. So the next piece we're going to go into is the engagement definition and factors. So starting with, what is employee engagement? I might hand this one to Vanessa, considering it's your quote.
Thanks, Mel. Look, I think employee engagement, I mean, it's a big term, but if we break it down, it's really about creating that culture or that environment where people are really motivated. And that's, how do we describe motivation? It's where they put their focus and energy. And what we want them to do in any organisation is to bring their best selves and to put that focus and energy on the things that are going to make the real difference to not only their particular team, but also to their function, to their business or organisation.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, here at PeopleStream, we've actually done some research, run some data as well. So we know that it's a proven 7 or 8 factors that help drive discretionary effort. So ultimately, that's what we're trying to do. And like Vanessa said, you know, how do we get people, you know, focused on what matters? Oh, the lights have just gone off. Excellent. So with this, we've got empowerment, nature of the job, commitment, work-life balance, relationships, performance management. Now, when we talk about performance management, it's not to the punitive. It's about how do we manage somebody to be the most effective in their role. So managing them to positive and productive outcomes, career growth and reward. Now, what's interesting here is that you can see that typically the individual-driven factors, so the one that's like sitting with the employee, so empowerment, nature of the job, commitment, this tends to be quite high. Now, this is, you know, what we see time and time again. Excuse me, I'm not sure why that. This is what we see time and time again with our engagement factors is that, excuse me. Sorry guys, we're having a bit of issues with that. I'm not touching anything, so we'll see what happens. The employee-driven factors are always quite high. The organisational-driven factors are the ones that are, you know, need to improve. So things like relationships, that's relationships with my manager, my, you know, organisation, the people around me in the company, and performance management, career growth and reward, like we said. So what this means is that it's absolutely within an organisation's control to be able to improve the engagement of the individual. What's in addition to that is this survey that was done by Seek. So this is where it's really cool because Seek actually validates exactly what our finding says here as well. So managers can be a great person, but a lousy manager. So what are the factors, you know, and reasons why people struggle at work or engagement goes down? We all know the age-old saying that people don't leave businesses, they leave managers. So again, qualities management, lack of feedback, then your stress levels go up. I don't know where the career development is or where my future is here. And then suddenly salary becomes an issue. What's interesting, if you're able to lift that feelings around that, those goals around quality of management, if you're able to improve, you know, feedback, stress levels come down because I'm clear on things, I know what's expected of me. Career development means I can see what's ahead of me, I can see there's a future here for me, and I'm being invested in. Suddenly salary doesn't become as much of an issue. So it's an interesting balance that, because when you join an organisation, you know, you join at a certain wage. Now the wage never goes down, does it? But something happens between then and when someone leaves for them to say, I don't get paid enough for this. So obviously there's some other things that we can counter in and take into factor here. I love this because it's so relevant right now. So when you have a look at this, take it from, you know, Doug from Campbell's Soup. He's the CEO there. So to win in the marketplace, you must first win in the workplace. I'm obsessed with keeping employee engagement front and center. And this is brilliant. In fact, there's multiple leaders you can see throughout history that have always focused on this type of thing, and you see the difference in them succeeding against their competitors time and time again. So from 1999 to 2009, a decade that saw the S&P 500 stocks lose 10% of their value, Campbell Soup stock increased by 30%. So while we're focusing on engagement here today because, we want our employees to feel focused, engaged, want to manage their stress levels, and we want what's best for them. Ultimately, it has, a commercial and financial outcome as well. So now that we've moved through some context and some definition, we're going to go into the remedies and actions because that's what everybody's here for today. So when we start with this, first we want to assess, don't guess. So what we want to do is deploy an engagement survey. And when I say deploy an engagement survey, we want to make sure that it's aligned to what we're really trying to achieve here. So not just thinking up some random questions through any survey tool, but what are the factors and what are the questions, linking to. So like I said, our engagement tool is 7 or 8 factors that drive discretionary effort. That's the purpose of our engagement tool. So if we're able to deploy something like that, then the goal is how do we drive discretionary effort and alignment. So how do we do that? We implement the automated employee engagement survey. I think now everybody being remote workforce and dispersed, we can see that technology has even more value than ever. It's easy to deploy, it's instantaneous, it can go out, and it's easy to get, instantaneous reports and action items quickly. So we're not deploying something and then doing something in 6 months, right? So we can deploy the survey now and we can start to get results and feedback back within weeks, like a week or 2 weeks, and then we can start to collate those and take some action. So we want to report on those reasons and factors that are affecting the employee engagement, and like I said, data to create the evidence so we know what to focus on. My mentor always said, I want to know what's in people's heads, what's their mental blockers, what's stopping them. So this is one of the most effective ways to find out. Vanessa, what do you have to say about the assess piece?
Yeah, there's just one thing I wanted to add to it, and I think it's particularly relevant at this point in time, is that it's great to get that quantitative data, and that's what we should do, but we really need to connect with people. So I think tasking people to not only speak and call their direct reports, but skip a level, go across to different departments, different functions, call your customers, call your suppliers. And if you can all do that, a few times a day, I think that makes a huge, big difference as well, because then you've got real life examples and it brings that insight to life. I was talking with the CEO of KC yesterday, Kimberly Clark, and I'd just done a capability report for their board. And he said, oh, Vanessa, it just reminded me that I can't walk the floors right now. So instead, I just made 3 calls. And he was talking about just the sentiment that people felt, that he was actually connecting to people that he doesn't normally talk to. They really, really appreciated it. So I really encourage people, particularly in the HR space, be a real role model here and make sure that people are doing this and consistently doing it and reporting back on it.
Yeah, absolutely. So the next item that we want to cover off is clarity. So how do we create clarity in times of confusion and, less connectedness? So like Vanessa was saying, we're not walking around in an office and seeing our colleagues every day and picking up on things, or, I say learning things via osmosis. It's not happening right now. So how do we provide that clarity? Again, leveraging tech to help support that by implementing an online performance management system. We want to set clear objectives. It's not business as usual, so it means that we have an increased need for this clarity and focus. So we need to get people on task, focused, set some goals or some objectives around this. Set short-term learning goals as well. Now's the time to invest in your people as they come out on the other side more skilled than before. We're going to talk more about this learning piece as well, but I can't emphasize the value of that enough. Getting employees to do the heavy lifting, and managers can refine that as well. So if you're, in a business where, you're doing once a year reviews and people are thinking, how am I going to do, regular catch-ups, etc., with everybody spread out, that just feels like a lot of work for the managers. the way we would advocate is to get the employees to start writing some of their own goals and their own learning goals and things like that, and that engages them in the process as well, and then they can refine with the manager. Review weekly. Now, we've been doing one-on-ones weekly for quite some time, at Ascender, and I have to say, they're quick catch-ups because not a lot changes from week to week. So it's not war and peace like we do when we have annual reviews if we're only catching up once a year. So week to week is a nice way for me to connect in with my manager, and he says to me, what is it that you need? How are you tracking? And at the moment, to be honest, that humanized experience comes in as well. He's saying to me, how are you coping? How are you feeling about things? Are you getting outside and, making sure that you're getting some fresh air? All this kind of stuff is happening. So getting employees to comment every week means they're more connected and feel more appreciated and more engaged. A lot of the time, the question I get asked is, how are employees going to do this? What's the adoption rate? Do people really want to do this? And what's interesting is they do. Most employees are asking for more feedback. So, a manager's reporting ratios could be 1 to 10, 1 to 5, whatever it might be. It's a lot to keep track in the head. It's a lot to keep track on pieces of paper. This is where an online platform gets that visibility for you. And it also means that as HR, you can look across your business and see who is having those catch-ups and maybe provide some recognition to those teams that are doing it. But also you can see where your hot spots and cold spots are. You just can't have that kind of visibility when you're looking at something through manual or paper processes. So increased communication and clarity reduces the unknowns and the stress as well. So instead of I'm going home and I don't know what I'm meant to do from home now, we're able to, realign people and get them super clear. Vanessa, I know that clarity is something that you often advocate when you're working with your clients. Is there something you'd like to add in there?
Yeah, look, I think it is really the first step, and I think more now than ever, it is really bringing that emotional piece into that clarity. So instead of 12-month goals, we might have 90-day goals. So I think if we provide that clarity and not just a list of facts and figures and why we've got to do this, but really connect into the emotional side, because if we put the rational and the emotional side together, that encourages people to take action. So I think that's really, really important and something we can do when we're explaining the why. Another rhythm that I do with my particular team is at the start of each week, I just get them to do 3 post-it notes, and one is really reflecting on what's a win or a highlight that they've had in the previous week. Then what are the 3 high-value activities that if they achieved that week, it would really unlock what they need to get done towards their ultimate goals, and what are the resources that they need, whether that be other people to input into those discussions or if it be tangible resources. So that's something that we share with on a weekly basis that really helps. And also what I find during these times is that people either respond or react. And unfortunately, when there's so much change, people get really confused. So they tend to react. And what I mean by that is their emotional response just goes straight up, and their logical part of their brain just really reduces in its cognitive function. So for us to be able to respond, what we've got to do is increase that logical perspective and balance that emotion. And the best way of doing that is getting clarity by writing things down, and writing them down or typing them up or putting them on your whiteboard, whatever it is, but visualizing it. And the most amount of detail you can go into, things become clearer and clearer. So that's something that I would really encourage people to do to get this clarity with one another.
Yeah, I can imagine also that it helps with that feeling of control. So in this time when there's so much uncertainty, we have no idea what's going to happen. We don't know, things are changing. It's so fluid. Things are changing daily. There's so many statistics, being thrown at us from different resources. We're trying to predict a future we don't know about. So I imagine people's anxiety and stress is going out from the lack of control. So being able to focus people on those tasks and giving them some control back, of their day and their outcomes, would have quite a powerful effect, especially in these times, I imagine.
Yeah, it's just really utilising, those Covey circles, which has just been a technique that people have been using for years and years now. But I think, I find it really useful. I do it every Friday night and just remind myself, actually, yeah, there's a lot of stuff that I can influence. There's a lot of things I can be concerned about, but what can I actually do right now?
Yeah, totally. And so that obviously is what we've been talking about here, is having regular communication, having the things written down for clarity's sake, something to go back to, having that visibility across the organisation. So HR, you can support and celebrate, the wins and where people are actually having their catch-ups and staying connected. This is where we can set some of the planning and that face-to-face planning and agreed objectives, etc., at the right now. So if you're still in old world appraisal land, then what's happening is that's the problems now, or the concerns are now, and the change is now, not in a year's time or in 3 months' time or so on. So now is the time to start getting more proactive and working tightly with our employees to support them through this time and ultimately support a business outcome as well. So with things being so fluid and changing, etc., how do we support our employees to succeed in this time? And that's through regular check-ins. It's not going to be through once a year sort of review scenario. So we've already touched on this, but we want to get better focus, better feedback, and ultimately higher engagement. So if we're talking around the engagement piece here, employees definitely feel more engaged and display more discretionary effort if they know they're working on things that are important to the manager, to the organisation, and to them as well. It's a clear mission. So this is the stuff that Vanessa was just highlighting before. Is there something else that you wanted to add in here as well, Vanessa?
Look, I think just on the better feedback point, Mel, I think this is a real important time to have a real rich feedback loop. And it is up to us to also be open to feedback, invite feedback. So, not just be always receiving feedback, but giving it as well. And we need to do that in a really, really, quick manner and when it's relevant. So I think that's the most important thing, and we've got to be able to feel really comfortable doing that peer-to-peer as well. So, in the entrepreneurial communities that I work with, there's a great app called Hey Taco, and I didn't realize tacos were so well loved by everybody in the world, but you can give out tacos, etc., for people as they're achieving things as well. So just think it's great to give that feedback on a consistent basis.
Agreed. So, and we can increase connection as well. So you can see everything's kind of feeding into each other here. Annual reviews are a waste of time. This is a once a year, it's, sort of engagement. Employees are becoming disengaged right now, not in a year's time. So you can see the differences. I love this infographic because it highlights clearly what we're trying to do here. So the top one is the appraisal, all this work effort's happening or not happening, all of these conversations may or may not be happening. Employees are left to, kind of drift off into the ether. So what we want to do is set some of these goals. We use a really great analogy about a sporting team. So imagine there's a football team, the captain of that football team doesn't say, or the coach doesn't say, all right, guys, the goal is to win the Premiership Cup, good luck, and then just let them, best of luck for the year. What happens is they, set some goals, they, play the game, then they review that game and they reassess and they look at how they're going to continuously improve. So this is, a great analogy for how we would use it on a day-to-day basis in a regular context. Now, even during COVID-19, what we want to do is realign people and focus them on what matters and help give them that sort of connection through those regular one-on-ones, which is, and that continuous feedback, which is what we were just talking about. We also want to humanize the experience, and see beyond the role function. Vanessa, you and I were just chatting about this yesterday. What was it that you have experienced recently, having worked from home and with your dog?
Yeah, it's really, really interesting. I guess I've had my own business for 5 years now. And previously, if I was on a Zoom call, I would be in a conniption thinking, oh my goodness, I hope Bose, my Kelpie, isn't going to start barking or wanting my attention, etc. And what I have found now, because everybody's on Zoom calls, what seems to be for, 8 hours a day, that that human element is coming into it. And people have got cats walking across the screen, dogs barking, kids coming in, etc. And it's like, well, that's the human touch that's coming back in. And I think it's far more forgiving. And not everything has to be perfect all the time, because that's not reality. In fact, you know, I've even had feedback from people in my team going, you know, it's so refreshing that I can talk to you, and I might be doing a walk in the park with my dog at the same time, or I might be putting on my makeup, or whatever it might be, because we just have to make it work. And that's really nice for people. But I really encourage people to keep the videos on, even though we might not be, you know, seeing everybody in our normal work attire or all done up to the nines, etc. And I just think it's so good to be able to eyeball people and really connect with people during these times.
Yeah, I think it's nice too. It's like I said, humanizing the experience is making, I guess, maybe some of the silver lining amongst all of this, realizing, you know, how human everybody is, that you don't have to be perfect to be successful.
Absolutely.
Okay, so
not.
learning and development. What do we want to do with learning and development? So in this time, what we want to do is invest in our people. So imagine, you know, a scenario where people come out more skilled than when they went in. Like, what would that mean for the business? What does it mean if you can invest in your people now with these, you know, some learning for them to do? You know, from an individual perspective, that's going to make them feel appreciated. They're going to have something to focus on. They're going to have a sense of achievement, and ultimately, it's going to benefit the business from a outcomes perspective as well. So we want to set some short-term learning goals. We want to invest in online learning. Obviously, people aren't being able to go into, you know, seminars and workshops right now. So online learning is a huge place to invest. You know, and there's a lot of great content available out there. We have, you know, Go1 is a, you know, qualified partner of ours. We've got a native integration, and Go1 have, you know, over 160 different content providers. It allows you to pick and choose and have learning pathways that can be driven both by the individual as well as, you know, deployed through managers or HR. So it's really great. So it's not just about compliance and reducing risk and making sure that everybody's got their right policies and things like that, but support employee wellness. You know, managing stress, infection prevention and control is, you know, stuff that we see going out all the time. You know, how to set up simple things like how to work from home, how to set up, you know, your desk appropriately and so on, so people stay healthy. You know, quick challenges for people to keep their brains ticking. The other thing is that when you think about it, with people not going into the office every day, I can't just turn to my colleague and say, hey, how do you do that thing again? Or can someone show me how to do this? Because they're not around physically as much. So what we want to do is make, you know, just-in-time learning, like quick bites available to people so they can access things and still feel supported and still carry on with their day. You know, when working from home, we have fewer opportunities to interact and acquire that information. So like I said, we want to make sure that we've got it available to us. And now is the time to invest in people, you know, so they come out the other side with more skills than before. Vanessa, I know you've got a really great story about one of your clients that you're seeing some great results of what they're doing around this at the moment. Is that right?
Yeah, so one of my clients is Sydney Opera House, and I've been super impressed with them and how they're tackling this. Obviously, they've got very different kind of populations of people, from people who are kind of more the traditional work in the office to people that are on production, lighting, audio, sound, etc. And of course, you know, it's closed right now. So what they've done is they've put together some learning journeys, and they've really focused that over the next 90 days. So they can put learning goals in place, like do 3 hours worth of learning. And this is what we expect you to do in the month of April or May or June, etc. And then we interdisperse it with group virtual coaching sessions. So that's great, just to make sure that the learning has been applied consistently and they've got that there to, I guess, network and to feed off the rest of the leaders and the team members there as well. So they're having some terrific success there, and I know that's something that they've always invested in, but it's normally been face-to-face, and it's just been great to look at putting that content online for them.
Yeah, brilliant. So in the rush to return to normal, use this time to consider which parts of normal are worth rushing back to. I can't claim this, obviously it's Dave Hollis, but Vanessa actually shared this with me yesterday and I thought it was really powerful. You know, this is a brilliant time for you at HR as the people expert across the business, you know, to reinvent yourselves and reinvent the way things are going to be done for you and for your employees. So a lot of the time, you know, I'm in the HR tech space, as you know, and I work with so many HR people that are like, oh, I just want, you know, to get a HCM system so I can focus on more strategic things. You know, I want to be able to add more value. So now is a really good time as operational stuff might be winding down, or as you're working from home, you haven't got people coming into the office physically. I always say that HR and IT are, you know, the two kind of departments in an organisation that can really be pulled from limb sometimes. They get pulled into reactionary sort of mode. So now's the time that you might find, you know, as things are, you know, downsizing or, you know, readjusting, it's a perfect time for you to assess what's the new normal look like, how do you reinvent yourself as HR, how do you add value, and what's your piece in all of this? You know, moving from reactive to proactive style stuff. Vanessa, do you have something to say about that?
Yeah, I do think it's a great opportunity for us to come out of COVID-19, you know, better humans than what we were going into it. And it's certainly allowed me to really stop and think and be grateful for things that I was just taking for granted beforehand, and really connect at a deeper level with people. And I think, you know, we've all got that opportunity to do it, and a responsibility to do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we're going to wrap up now. Just wanted to highlight that we do have a couple of things for you. We're offering actually a free engagement tool for you to launch ASAP. It's naturally online. There's some really great analytics that come with that as well. So if this is something you would like to adopt, I highly encourage it. You can have a free engagement tool, deploy that across your business, get some great analytics and data to support your next move, essentially. So what is it that we need to focus on next, and how do we add value? If you are looking to invest in any of our HR technology, we do actually also have an easy buy option. I'm going to mention this because during this time, a huge focus for a lot of organisations is to protect revenue. So there could be a perception, you know, that you know, we may not be investing in technology, or we may not be investing in things right now. Our easy buy option allows organisations to break down the payments into monthly. So it's not a huge upfront cost. It ends up being, you know, monthly instalments. Obviously, we can talk about that in more detail if anybody has any questions around that. But yeah, I do encourage you to reach out to us. There's some contact information here if you would like to get in touch with either Vanessa or myself. It's myself for the engagement tool and survey, or any other questions around our technology or HR. And Vanessa is available to answer any of your questions as well.
Yeah, and I'm just going to jump in here. We do have a few questions that have come up, so we probably have time for a few questions. So if you do have any, please ask them in the question panel below. But one of our first questions is, any tips on getting managers to actually do the weekly check-ins?
Do you want to rock, paper, scissors for it, Vanessa? Vanessa, what do you feel in your experience working across different businesses?
Yeah, it's got to be role modeled from the top. So if the CEO's doing it, if the C-suite are doing it, and they're asking, who have you contacted, what have they said, etc., then it just ripples across the whole organisation. So I think that's the best thing, is just to make it an expectation. When we did that at McDonald's, we kind of went in big stick to begin with, and that's like, or if you didn't do them, then you wouldn't be considered for a pay review or for your bonus for that year. So that was a number of years ago right now. And then as people got into the habit of it, it was more about the reward for it. But yeah, it's just got to come from the top, and it's just got to be an expectation.
Yeah, I would agree.
Awesome.
Any other
And then probably have time, yeah, for one more question, because we have gone a bit over time. But one person's asked, we are in a very unprecedented times in relation to business objectives. As such, we would like to measure staff in relation to behaviours more than business objectives. What would be the best approach?
Perfect. You can do that. So I'll take this one if that's okay with you, Vanessa, and maybe you want to add in your 2 cents afterwards. But if that's something that you want to approach with around behaviours, I would agree. I think I would be curious to know, it's hard when it's not a two-way conversation, but I'd be curious to know as to, you know, why the objectives are difficult right now, because realistically the company strategy could be changing. And if it's just that it's in that time of change and you're waiting for the new strategy to be deployed, that's fine as an interim sort of thing. But then we need to quickly realign. So we need that fast execution of strategy across the employees. We need to give that clarity. But I agree, having the conversations about something that's focused is better than nothing. So definitely do that, and you can still do that through this online tool that we have, which allows you to focus, you know, on, you know, values and behaviours or competencies or learning goals. That's definitely an option, but I wouldn't completely dismiss the need for giving people some goals to work towards as well. You know, to have a sense of value themselves, as well as aligning to, you know, some business achievements.
Lovely. All right, that's probably all we have time for. I want to say thank you to Vanessa and Mel for running the webinar today. It's so great to see many of you on the line. I can tell this was a very popular topic, and I hope everyone got some value out of it. Afterwards, we do have an after webinar survey, which you can just let us know how you felt about the webinar and if you want any more information on what we've talked about today. But again, I'd like to say thank you for everybody for joining. Keep an eye out on your inbox for any more resources coming through. And again, thank you, Vanessa and Mel.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you, everybody. I'll see you later.
Bye.